Welcome to this analysis of what must be described one of the most amazing games of chess played at least this year, if not, can I dare say it, ever? Is that possible? Well, you be the judge of this quite phenomenal game. And the players in question, before we move on to the chess, is Wei Yi, is the person who created this supernova on the chessboard. And we must just mention a couple of things about Wei Yi. Wei Yi was born in 1999 and he was a GM at 13 years and 8 months. So he's the youngest ever player in the world to become a Grandmaster. And when he got his Grandmaster title, I was in Iceland with him and I was doing a bit of commentary over there and I was asked to interview him, and he very cleverly dodged my interview. He got his friend to tell me he didn't speak any English, but then about an hour later I heard him speaking fluent English to someone else, which was quite interesting. But he seemed like a very nice kid there, and he's also the youngest player to ever cross the 2700 barrier. So he beat Magnus Carlsen with that score. So I really do think that this player has potential to dethrone Magnus Carlsen, and he could be the first ever Chinese world champion. Certainly someone to watch out for. And just look at this game. Look at what he created in this game. I mean, this game is really slicker than smashed bananas dipped in oil. That's my definition of this game. It's such a slick game. It's been coined the Immortal game, and we can compare this maybe to the Immortal game, Anderson versus Kurotsky, played in London 1851, but this certainly has a lot in store. So let's now move on to the action. Should point out that Wei Yi's opponent is a very good player, Bruzon from Cuba, so 2660 rating, certainly no idiot. And the game starts in a typical Sicilian manner, and now White picks quite a crafty move order here. Rather than going straight away into the open Sicilian, he delays this by a couple of moves. He develops both of his knights, and now a6. Again, he avoids going d4 here. One of the reasons maybe d4 is avoided is that after pawn takes, knight takes, black can play very flexibly here with a move like queen c7 or something in a similar vein. So instead of playing this way, White decided to go bishop e2 first. And this is quite a tricky move order because now black has to decide what setup to go for. And black has to kind of, well, it's not entirely sure whether White's going to go d4 or not. But black continued very standardly. And to be honest, up to about move 15, things were very, very standard. Queen c7, and now White castled kingside. And in these type of positions, one of the most dangerous plans for black, and a plan that White often plays, as we're going to see here, is throwing this f-pawn up the board. This f-pawn comes charging up the board, a great pawn to attack with. And the idea is often to open up this rook on f1, which becomes like an f1 car, shining up the board, racing up the board towards black's king. And we're going to see later on that this is a key theme in this game for White. Okay, so now black continues his development. So does White. Bishop e3, bishop e7, and here we go, f4. So here comes White's expansion on the king side. Now e5 may be a threat here, so black has to defend against that. b6, a very useful move now from White, king to h1, because the White king can be very exposed on this diagonal. Black castles, and here a very nice and typical maneuver for this position. White is going to be attacking on the king side because this is where he has a space advantage, so he needs to maneuver his pieces over to that area of the board. Now, often in the Sicilian, black will gain his counterplay by attacking with the move b5, combined with play on the half-open file, which is the C file. So generally black is going for queenside play, White's kingside play. On top of this, the move d5 is a move that black often tries to break with because he's a little bit cramped at the moment. But anyway, a very good move from White, queen to e1. And this queen is moving over to g3, where it's going to start to look at the black king. Black trades on d4, bishop takes d4, and now white has to cope with this advanced b5, and black needs to start this counterplay on the queen side. Queen g3 is now played, and this already looks at the g7 square. Now, b4 is a possibility, but it's also quite risky, because white has a number of options here. Even the move e5 is quite critical, and a typical idea that black really has to watch out for, just going for the direct attack. For example, if black takes on c3, white can take on f6, and black is losing here, as you can probably see. So black needs to just be a little bit careful here, and bishop to b7 is played first to develop another piece. Now e5 is playable, but black can take on e5 and keep the position quite flexible here. So white doesn't rush into playing e5. And I like this strategy from white. There's no real reason to rush from white. You might as well put your pieces on the best square first. Remember, to attack, you need to have a good foundation. Lots of beginners will attack from a loose foundation. And if you can remember that parable in the Bible, I think it was something like, the house that was built on the beach looked beautiful, but it was built on sand and it crumbled. The same goes with chess. If you play chess, you need to have a strong foundation before you launch into an attack. And this is the same here. So first of all, white just takes his time, a3, stopping black's counterplay. Must note that black can't take on e4 because g7 will be mate. So black now prepares in some cases to go d5. Now, what is the only piece that white has which is not taken apart in the attack? It's the rook on a1. So now white brings this to a very useful square, supporting moves like e5 later on. Rook d7 played, and black is just playing a sort of waiting game. And personally, I'd always much rather be white in these kind of structures because, white has a chance to break at some point, but patience is a key thing here. And again, we see this patient build-up now with bishop to d3. And look at these bishops. These bishops are now brilliantly placed, and they're like X-ray sort of. If you've seen, what's that thing? It's the cartoon thing where this guy has the glasses. I can't remember his name, but he takes his glasses off and he has this beam of light that shines out of his glasses. And these bishops remind me of that. They're like X-raying towards black's kingside. And also now white has ideas of maybe even going queen h3 and hitting the h7 pawn, because the bishop is much better placed on d3. So only now that white has all of his pieces lined up in perfect situation can he consider opening up the position. Now, queen to d8 was played. I'm not so keen on this move. It seems rather passive to me. White now plays queen to h3, figuring that h7 is the main target. The immediate threat here is, of course, e5, opening up lines towards that square. So black has to close down the bishop on d3 with g6. And now, again, now the foundation has been built, it's time to strike. f5. And let's get to the real action now. e5 played. Black trying to keep things close. Bishop to e3. And now rook to e8. This is a typical defensive idea in these kind of structures. Black wants to have ideas of bishop f8 to g7 available, keeping his king protected. Now, there was one game between the player Bok from the Netherlands and Eric Hansen from Canada, which continued knight to h5 here. I still think white's doing very well in this position. I mean, Bok won a very nice game after rook to f3, and after something like bishop c6, bishop h6, he had ideas that queen takes h5 and rook to g3 check, which is very dangerous. You can probably see that can create some very big danger for the black king here. I mean, let's say black's not careful. Let's say black plays a move like queen to b6. Well, now it's game over. Queen takes h5. This is a beautiful win. Pawn takes h5. Rook to g3 check. King to h8. And now bishop g7 check, king to g8, and can you see checkmate in one move here? Bishop to f6, checkmate. So that's a very nice combination. So it just shows you some of the dangers still facing black. But the game took an even more beautiful route than that line. And instead of knight to h5, rook to e8 was played. And here, white took on g6. So remember what I said about this f-file opening up the rook on f1? We're going to see that happen here. Black retook with the h-pawn, and black wants to desperately try to get his bishop to g7, or if he has time ever, to get a rook to h8. But this is not going to happen. And now black has to face some forward aggressive attacking moves. White's piece is perfectly placed. It's time to go for the attack. Knight to d5. And after knight takes d5, we see the start of something very special, something that we all should remember, and I think has brought me a lot of joy looking at this game here. So obviously the normal move would be pawn takes d5, but white has something even better up his sleeve, and this next move is a real, actually quite a common theme in these positions when you have your queen on h3 and a rook on the open f line. It's a common idea, but it's also a very, very effective idea here. The amusing thing is, if you leave this position on any of the best computers out there like Houdini, they will say that white's next move is only good enough for a draw. And only if you leave it on Houdini for 3 minutes or so will it change its assessment. So the calculation from white at this point in the game is quite phenomenal. And now we start this beautiful attack. Can you see the move played? Wha-bang! Rook takes f7. Beautiful idea. And queen to h7 is checkmate, so black is forced to capture this one. And this combination of the 1-2 taken on f7 followed up by queen to h7 is certainly a pattern that is well worth remembering. Makes the black king run. And here king to e6 forced. You can't go back to f8 because bishop h6 is checkmate. So the black king is forced to move forwards. King to e6, not exposing itself on the f-file, looks like the most sensible choice. And now white takes on d5 with check. Now the black king is pretty much forced to come out into the open, because if bishop takes d5, he's going to lock himself in. So king takes d5 is a forced move. And now we see another fantastic and beautiful move. Given a chance, this king will run away to the queen side, and we cannot allow that to happen. And again, this game demonstrates to us that when you have the initiative, when you are attacking, you have to play with such energy. You cannot play a safe, quiet move. Well, you might be able to, but in the majority of cases, you should be looking at the most forcing possibilities first. And here we see the second bolt from the blue. Bishop to e4 check. Wow, I mean, it's just such a beautiful move. Stopping the black king retreating to c6, but giving up yet another piece. So white is going to be a bishop and a rook down after this. It's like a romantic game from the old era of chess, this. And it really is beautiful to see that this kind of chess is still playable nowadays. Now, the king really has to go forwards, because if black tries to retreat, white can continue with queen to g6 check. Black has to block this, and now queen to f5 check, king to e7, queen to h7 check. I mean, this is all quite hard to calculate, but given time, you'd like to think that this is doable at the board. And now king to f8, for example, bishop to h6 check, rook g7. And now here I said, like I mentioned before, you should look at the most forcing moves first, but as we're going to see in this game, if the most forcing moves do not work, you have to then look at the slow moves and try to calculate every possibility you can see. And this is one case of that, because after rook to f1, lining up on the f-file, black is completely busted. Queen takes g7 mate as the threat, and there's not much or nothing black can do to stop this. So this would have also led to defeat for black here. You can try to find defense, maybe have a little look, pause the video if you want to. We won't look at all variations here. We'll let you try to work some things out at home as well. But as we can see, black is not going to escape. The white bishop in some lines, I'll give you a little clue, can come to g6. So black king has to go forwards yet again and start its march of doom. And king takes e4, played. And now, this is where, again, you've got to look at the forcing move first. And if they don't work, then you look at the quiet moves. So if I was playing this game, I'd first look at queen takes g6 check, because it's a forcing move. But then if I thought black's king was running away back to c8, which it actually will do, I'd have to start looking at other possibilities. And there now, in this position, is a very nice move. The first quiet move, queen to f7. And this stops the black king retreating, and it threatens also queen to f3 checkmate. So that's the first quiet move, keeping the black king stuck here. There was actually another very nice way of doing this as well, and that was the move c4. And this would have led to another beautiful win. This has the same idea, trying to stop the black king from retreating. And now with something like king to d3, we get a very amusing line after queen takes g6 check. Let's say black tries to block that. Now rook to d1 check, and it's something like king c2. Here comes the king, and eventually this king is going to be hunted down in some kind of fashion like this. So very nice king hunt there. So c4 was another way to do this, just to take away some of the retreat squares to the black king. You've got this black king stuck in this position, so you've got to keep it there. But queen to f7 was very nice as well. Bishop to f6 to stop queen to f3 checkmate. Okay, now white just showed who's boss by repeating the position one time, but after he did that, he came up with the second quiet move, queen to b3. And again, he could not see a forcing option, so he now brings the queen back nearer to the black king. The immediate threat is queen to d3 checkmate, and this black king, look at it, it's just stuck in no man's land, cannot retreat anywhere. So the king tries to run away, but now white chases it down. Rook to f1 check, can't go to e6, has to come forwards. And now we see the third quiet move. And this is one of the reasons I love this game. It has a mix of attacking aggressive moves with quiet queen moves. I mean, the first thing again you should look at is something like h3 check, but if you then maybe black can run away to h5, and if you can't see a win, you have to start looking at other possibilities. And here, queen to d3 is a key move. This queen is now bringing another quiet queen move, the third quiet move, threatening to take on g6 and come to e2, just getting a little bit nearer to the opposing king. How can black defend? Well, he can't. In the game, he tried bishop takes g2. Because queen takes g6 is a major threat here, followed with a mating attack. And if something like rook to g7 defending that pawn, well, white would now win with the combination queen e2 check, king h4. And let's just give you a little test here. If you haven't seen the game and you want to try to work this out, pause the video in a second and try to work out how you'd continue this position as white. So what would you do as white in this situation? The black king is clearly in trouble, but you have to still checkmate it. What is the cleanest way to win here? So pause the video now. Well, a very nice line here. There may be more than one line, but the best way to win is the nice and quiet move, h3. Really, really nice idea. Threatening queen to g4, checkmate. Only one way to stop that, queen d7. Really, you have to put some piece on that diagonal. And now the point behind h3, king to h2. And this is one of the rare cases where in the middle game, the white king becomes a deadly attacking force. I mean, what a unique idea. The idea is g3, checkmate. And again, you can check this variation, this position at home, but there's nothing black can do in the long run to stop checkmate here. So very pretty variation, that one. So black obviously saw that, and he went for the rather desperate move now. Bishop takes g2 check. White took this bishop. Black's idea to try to defend the light squares by putting the queen on a8. The king came back now. Again, the threat is, one of the threats is queen takes g6. So black tried to defend this and swap off some pieces. But now remember the other way the white queen was coming. It wasn't just coming to g6. It was also moving around to e2. Queen e2 check. King to h4. Bishop f2 check. King h3. Look at the route this king has taken. It's quite funny. I mean, let's just draw a pattern. It's come to d5, e4, f5, and over to h3. All starting from this brilliant rook f7 move. So quite a phenomenal chase down of the king. And now the last brilliant move from white here, bishop to e1. And again, another quiet move with a deadly point. The idea of bishop to e1 is now the rook is threatening to come to f3. Also, the white queen is threatening to come to d3, then across with checkmate. And even though black is a rook up, there is nothing he can do to stop this. For example, if he tries something along the lines of rook to f8, guarding f3, white simply takes the rook, queen takes f8, queen to g2, checkmate. So that certainly doesn't help there. What else can black do? Well, he has to try and stop this move, rook to f3. If he goes e4 to stop this, he has the same problem. Now white can play queen to g2, checkmate, because the pawn on e4 blocks the black queen over to g2. And, well, as I mentioned also, this idea of queen to d3 is a killing idea. So black resigned in this position. And I hope you agree, a quite astonishing game there from someone who was born in 1999. I mean, this guy is young. I mean, that would make him roughly 15, 16 years old. And, well, if he can play chess like that at this age, imagine how good he's going to be in 10 years. He's already, rating-wise, 27, 25. He has a brilliant understanding of the game, and I personally clearly see him being one of the main threats to Magnus Carlsen over the next period of 10 years. He's young, he's talented, and he can create brilliancy on the board, and such an exciting player to watch. So anyway, I really enjoyed that game. It was a beautiful king hunt. Hope you enjoyed it at home as well. That black king got chased around everywhere. It went over the hills, around the garden, over the moor hills, off to Land's End, back again. It went everywhere, that king, but it couldn't run away. So a very, very nice game from white. And it all started, I think the key thing that you guys at home can maybe take away from this is this rook takes f7 move. So if we go back to this critical point here, I think the important thing to take away from this game is the combination rook takes f7, and this works in a lot of cases when there's an open f file and an open h file for the queen to swing into, and this starts this amazing king chase. King takes f7 and queen to h7 check. So that's certainly a theme that I hope, a pattern that will stick with you, and hopefully you'll be able to use this at some point in one of your own games. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with more videos soon.